Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Icy. After I finish ALCI program, I will be an undergraduate student who study music major, and this is why I'm concerned about music industry. Also, nowadays people are surrounded by music because music exists everywhere. People can be easily influenced by it. Therefore, we cannot ignore the negative influence which is caused by explicit recordings. And this is why I choose this topic, combating harmful music contents through the creation of a music rating system to share with you. Before we get started, I want you to think about the music you listen to on a daily basis. Do you think this music influences you? You may say it doesn't. However, much research shows that music does influence people's mood and emotion. Even more, the lyrics in the explicit recordings can negatively influence a person. For example, in Smith's research, it was found that aggressive music lyrics increase people's aggressive thoughts and behavior and have long-term effects such as influencing people's perception of society. Also, uh, um, Anderson and Anderson and Energy have conducted an experiment to examine the relationship between songs with explicit lyrics and listeners' aggressive thoughts and feelings. In the experiments, they found two songs, one of which is a common song without any explicit lyrics, the other of which is a song with clearly violent lyrics. Then they asked the participants to listen to both two songs and do a survey after listening. The result found that songs with explicit content or violent lyrics produce higher level of hostility in listeners. Also, Candide found that in the Billboard Hot 100 list from 2001 to 2010, the vast majority contain at least one form of mis- misogynistic, misogynistic, physical violence, sexual conquest, and demeaning language. And 40% of the songs contain more than one form. Also, another study conducted by Chantal found that 24% of the songs surveyed mention alcohol at least once. These are two shocking figures which show us explicit lyrics have occupied most of the music in daily life. From these information, we can see that music does influence a person. Even more, we need to consider the vulnerable population such as children. As we all know, children are curious and they love to imitate those around them. So they are easier influenced by their surroundings. So, because of this reason, it is necessary to create a music rating system and to protect people, especially children, from the negative influence of explicit recordings. Before we look at the movie rating system, I would like to give you a little background information as to what the current situation looks like. Nowadays, there is an association named RIAA, the Recording Industry Association of America. It is formed. It was formed by most of the record labels and distributors. They provide a parental advisory label to artists and record labels. They suggest them to put this sticker on their recordings if their recordings have explicit content. However, I don't think this approach is effective because there are many limitations in this label. For example, only artists and record labels can determine whether their recordings should be labeled or not. And this sticker will only put by them. So how can people know that if they don't put this sticker on their explicit recordings? So it is necessary to create. Therefore, a parental advisory label cannot effectively improve the negative influence of explicit recordings. Instead, it's better to create a music rating system and it will work well in reducing this negative influence. During our time today, I would like to examine what the music rating system could be potentially look like. We will first look at the rating levels and detailed content advisories. Then we will move on to the independent rating body. Finally, we will discuss the purchase age policy. So firstly, let's look at the rating levels and detailed content advisories. Recordings will be rated before publishing and divided into different levels. Also, detailed content advisories will be put on the recordings. Similarly, the PMRC has proposed a rating system to the RIAA. They suggest 4 letters to show the detailed content on the recordings. They suggest an X for profanity and sexually explicit content, a V for violent content, a D/A for drug and alcohol references, and an O for occult content. On the other hand, some people may say that how can we define what is appropriate because there are no certain definition of appropriateness. Also, they may say that readers and listeners may have different perceptions of proper lyrics. Like Pro 2010 said that no board can determine what is the appropriate interpretation of a song and how it should be rated. However, they need to know that people have common standard of appropriateness, like asking someone are drugs and violent content suitable for children or not. Almost everyone will say it is not suitable for children, even for everyone. Also, let's look at the movie rating system. It is successful. Like Matthews said that the rating is not perfect, but it is effective. Now we have discussed the rating levels and detailed content advisories. Let's move on to the need of an independent rating body. As I mentioned before, the current solution for the explicit recordings is to put a parental advisory label on the recording, and it was come from the movie rating system. However, they are different. For the movie rating system, it is de facto mandatory. Why did I mention de facto? It is because filmmakers are not required to do that. However, if they don't do that, their films will be harder to show in the cinemas on website. So it is a kind of mandatory. On the other hand, the parental advisory label is different. It is totally voluntary. So I suggest to change the people who make the decision from artists and record labels to a panel of anonymous parents and people who have worked for education but never worked for music. And it will be an independent rating body. Just take the movie rating system as an example. Glickman 2000 said that they all have some parenting experience, so they can look at movies with a parent's perspective. Because these raters all have parenting experience, so they are better to make the decision and rate the recordings for children. On the other hand, some people may say that the release number of recordings is different from the release number of movies. Take 2009 for an example. There are 793 movies be rated, and the release number of recordings is 17,000 albums, and these albums were sold more than 100 units. From here, we can see that the release number of recordings is much bigger than the release number of movies. So they think that create an independent rating bodies will take more time and manpower. Also, these people may say that if musicians are better to interpret their recordings because they create them. However, they first need to know that movies and songs have different lengths and parts of concern. For rating a song, it will only take about 3 minutes, and the raters only need to concern the lyrics in the recordings. For rating a movie, it will take about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and the raters not only need to concern what people hear, but also what people see. In other words, the time of rating a movie can rate at least 40 songs. Also, for those who said that musicians are better to interpret their recordings, they need to know that musicians also have motivation to lie. It is because if one of the songs in the album should be labeled, all the songs in the album should be labeled, so they may not be honest. After introducing what will the independent body look like, let's move on to the purchase age policy. For the RIAA, they need to establish a policy of requiring a minimum purchase age, and they can only distribute their recordings to the following retailers. For the retailers, they need to use the RIAA's policy to require a minimum age to purchase, and this age should be 18, because 18 is considered to be the age of an adult. Similarly, Walmart has held a policy that banned music with a parental advisory label. However, Walmart seems to be the only major retailer who has realized the negative influence of explicit recordings, and they try to prevent this negative influence. I appreciate Walmart's awareness. However, I don't think music should be banned. Instead, should be rated. On the other hand, some people may say that establishing a policy of requiring a minimum purchase age will cause the increasing of independent musicians. Let's first look at data. There are 85% of the songs are released by the RIAA, and the rest 50% of the songs are released by the independent musicians. However, a study found that the number of independent musicians is increasing nowadays. So these people may say that establishing a purchase age policy will encourage more musicians to operate independently, and they will sell their recordings outside the RIAA. However, they need to know that there are many benefits of membership, and there are many musicians and record labels have joined the RIAA because of these benefits. Firstly, the RIAA protects members' copyright, which means that members don't need to concern or worry, or worry about their recordings. Secondly, members and non-members have different discounted rate on Gold Platinum Program certifications. For members, they only need to pay $350. However, for non-members, they need to pay $450 per certification, and they also need to prepay. Thirdly, members are free to use all the information in the RIAA's US Recording Industry Revenue Database. As we know, copyright is always a problem. Nowadays, it is easily for people to get music. So if this problem become more serious, these benefits will motivate more people to be members. In the time today, we talk about the music. In the time today, we talk about the negative influence of explicit recordings. Create a music rating system seems to be a simple way to prevent this negative influence. Firstly, the rating levels will provide more detailed and practical guidance to customers, especially parents. Secondly, the independent body will be more impartial than having artists and record labels to rate their own recordings. Thirdly, an age-based purchase policy will provide a greater protection of children. If we have this music rating system, the negative influence of explicit recordings will be reduced. So it is necessary to create a music rating system in America now. Thank you for your attention. I will take questions at this time.
Thank you, Icy, for your presentation. You asked me to come and ask questions, so I'm happy to oblige. Okay, could you go back to the slide about the experiment at the beginning? Alright, so first of all, I don't buy this whole thing because I think my 5-year-old son can listen to whatever he wants and he's not going to be affected by it. So tell me about this, the experiment. Okay. There were these 2 different types of songs. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. One had explicit lyrics.
Yes.
The other had clearly violent lyrics.
No.
that
What
right?
is a common song without any explicit lyrics? Oh, without. Sorry.
Okay, okay, with no explicit lyrics. Okay. All right. Well, then maybe that persuades me a little bit more. I'm gonna have to think about my 5-year-old son. Okay. So you might want to make sure you change that, because otherwise,
Okay.
the experiment doesn't sound like it really has much value. Okay. Secondly, this rating system. Could you go to the slide about the rating system? Okay. I think there's one more, right? This is kind of the overview of what you're gonna do. Okay. Okay, so I see these categories, detailed content advisories. So, okay, like, let's say if one recording on one album a has one swear word, right? Okay, one bad word for one song on the entire album, and there's another album that has 50 swear words in every song. They're both going to get the X, right, for profanity.
Yes.
How am I going to know? Is there any way for me to tell that one is worse than the other as a parent? How will I know?
I think they both are worse because they have. That
Okay, whether it's got one swear word or 50 times the 15 songs, as a parent, I should be equally concerned about both?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because lyrics can influence people. Whatever, like how many lyrics, how many times to use that word.
Okay. What if one word is not as bad as the other words that are used? Like what if one word is kind of bad, but
if it is bad, it should be rated. It deserves to put this advisory.
Okay, so if my child hears it once, he's not going to be impacted anymore if he hears it 200 times. Is that right? Like, if my child hears it once on one album, that's going to have the same negative impact on him as it would if he hears that word 200 times. Is that right?
I think if you buy a recording, you will not only hear one time.
Okay, so maybe I listen to it 15 times. And
yes, so you will
influence
by the lyrics.
What?
So you will influence by the lyrics and your son.
Okay. Okay, so you don't care the number of times. It's just whether it's there once.